Premier Lee announced the deal during his visit to Malaysia on Monday. He also met with the Malaysian Prime Minister. They also discussed Malaysian involvement in China's Belt and Road Initiative. I spoke to Murray Hiebert it was a packed 3 days for the Premier, who also attended the ASEAN meetings in the East Asia Summit in Kuala Lumpur. I spoke to Murray Hiebert for more on all of this. He specializes in Southeast Asia Studies at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. I asked him about the major developments that came out of the ASEAN meetings.
The ASEANs have been moving toward having an ASEAN economic community, which is going to do a lot more integration, lowering tariffs, making trade investment within the region much easier, making it a little easier for some classes of labor to move. So that was a big deal. Now, they didn't 100% achieve it. They knew that from a long time ago they wouldn't, but they declared sort of victory up until this point and then are giving themselves another 10 years to achieve it. They also mentioned terrorism, especially related to Paris, the Paris events with ISIS, and then also the South China Sea, calling for peaceful resolution, freedom of navigation, those kinds of issues.
Premier Lee also has this 5-point plan to solve the South China Sea dispute. This seems to be a major sticking point with ASEAN countries. How did that fly?
Well, I mean, he raised the issues of that outside powers should not be involved. That's a direct reference to, I guess, the United States and to Japan, Australia. He suggested that overflights and freedom of navigation should be continued, and suggested that nobody should ratchet up tensions in the region without so that that resolution would become more difficult and it could lead to conflicts down the road. Now, how did that go? There's obviously countries in the region, particularly Philippines, Vietnam, and Malaysia, that have been really anxious about China's reclamation of islands in the last 18 months or so.
China's Asia-Pacific strategy, can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, China is really the largest trading partner for a lot of the ASEAN countries. China is also talking about the One Belt, One Road, where it's going to help with infrastructure. The Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank is going to be providing loans for infrastructure. So China is a pretty major trading partner with a lot of the ASEAN countries. And then it's also a major, it looks like it's going to become a major funder of infrastructure projects. And when Premier Lee was there, he announced that in Malaysia, that China would invest $10 billion, additional $10 billion in infrastructure projects.
So talk to me then about his visit to Malaysia. How would you characterize it?
A lot of it was focused, the bilateral visit, beyond the meetings, the ASEAN meetings. A lot of it was focused on economic initiatives. He gave a speech at an economic forum. He talked about the need for increased cooperation on governing financial services. He talked about finding ways to increase trade and investment. He visited Malacca, south of the capital, where Chinese navigators arrived decades ago, 13th century. So it was, a lot of it was focused on trade and investment issues with Malaysia, Malaysia was the first country to recognize China within Southeast Asia, and it's their largest trading partner.